Hello, 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 and welcome to this month's amazing lineup on the Her Version Impact panel. This all-women's community continues to grow and expand as our realization of how important community is. We have had over 350 women speak on this platform and over 800 women in our Facebook group. Be sure to join us. I am thrilled to have a female panel here filled this month as we talk about ego and releasing identity, something so many women and men are dealing with. The conversation around this topic will be broad and will guarantee to educate you on so many areas of your life. Join us as we dive deep into our personal journeys and what we have created for ourselves in order to better our lives. There will be live Q&A for the next 2 hours, so get your questions in. For those of you that don't know me, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. I am the creator of Human Better 365, a human transformation company specializing in building communities, creating space for open communication, time management, and organization, the keys to building a solid foundation for your life. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's get going. Oop, I can't find my video. Let's join in. When people hear the word ego, they usually think of it in a negative way, someone who is super aggressive, conceited, or narcissistic. But is that really the case? Should we be releasing our bond to these things? Today, we're going to dive into the world of ego, identity, control, awareness, consciousness, and thought. Is there a difference between ego and confidence? Is having a healthy ego even possible? How can knowing the answers to all these questions help us to become more powerful humans? We are about to find out. So I want to welcome the ladies. One of the first things that I love to do is to go around and just have each one of you introduce yourselves. We are going to start with Elizabeth this morning with who you are, where you're from, what you do, and why this subject.
Good morning. Elizabeth Romsloe. I am a husky mom and salsa dancer, and I live in DC. I'm originally from Philadelphia. What I do is branding and social media strategy for cycle breakers and magic makers, specifically women in the MLM space who are looking to break from their upline and find their own voice. Why this subject? I think that there's a good deal of overlap between ego and branding, so it's already of interest to me in what I do, and I don't necessarily think that we should be letting it go. So, yeah.
Wow, I love that. Liying.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure to be with all these beautiful women. My name is Liying. I am a ceremonial keeper of Cha Dao, or known in English, the Way of Tea. And I'm a sacred transformation mentor to creative spiritual feminine leaders. And my mission is to help them to live on purpose in their own authentic power. And I am in Edinburgh. I'm originally from Malaysia, but I married a Scotsman, so here I am in Scotland. And why this subject? I think a lot of my work really revolves around this, and that's why I was instantly attracted to this whole subject, because my work now really bows to the ancient wisdom and spiritual guidance I received from ancestors and beyond. And the medicine of Tea Spirit really helps a woman, or even a human being in general, to really drop in from that space where we are attached to the mind or the ego, to really listen in and quiet the mind and open the heart. So I'm really excited to dive in today.
Lisa.
Yes. Hi, I am Lisa, and I have traveled the world over 60 countries, and I've lived with shamans in Peru and Bedouins in the mountains of Petra, and was with Sufis in Cappadocia and many other places. And I have been obsessed with what makes us tick and what makes us do the things we do. so I've been this voracious traveler forever. And then I started putting formulas together with all my ahas. And I created a company called Soul Blazing, which is all about the ego and the soul and how to break down the ego and get back to the authentic soul, or to find where the two meet. Once the ego is in alignment with your soul, that's where authentic power comes in. And I ended up writing a book, Soul Blazing. And it's really about all the 7 imposters that live on the stage of your brain making decisions for you unless you figure out who they are, who gave it to you. I usually say name it, claim it, because that person is working as your ego making all these decisions. I am from Los Angeles, but everywhere. I have a home in a couple of different places, and I love to get around because I love meeting new people. And I do private one-on-ones with a few people, but I do Zoom coaching, and I work with foster kids, and I work in prisons to help people overcome their issues. And why this subject? It's because it's what I do every day, and it's what I live when I'm not working. I'm always, voracious traveler, and putting myself in situations where I could learn and grow about the ego, because I think it's one of the most important subjects. If you don't know who you are, then nothing in your life works. Thank you.
Ileana, you're muted.
Sorry. So my name is Ileana Rontea. I've actually traveled a great deal also. This is the 13th country I'm living in, France at the moment. And I'm sort of from everywhere, also lived a long time in Canada. With my business partner, I have a company called Empowered Women Now. We teach women how to show up, speak up, and really live a life of authenticity in the workplace. So we go in and work with corporate clients and encourage them to support their female staff to really achieve and go a notch higher, which also helps the organization at the same time. Why this subject? We actually discuss the subject in our teachings. When we train women, we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we also do a lot of Jungian based psychology, where we discuss self-actualization and transcendence. So it's a fascinating topic for me. I've done a lot of reading on it, and also podcasts, listened to a lot of spiritual teachers. So it's super fascinating. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Caren.
Hi, I am Caren Cooper. I am from Brooklyn, New York, but I reside in Staten Island, New York. What do? I am a wellness consultant. I have an online health and wellness business, and my passion with that is to really show women how to contribute financially, work from home online. I used to work in corporate America, and I had to leave my children in daycare because I didn't know another way to earn an income. So I'm really passionate about showing women how they can contribute financially from home and have more freedom and choice. And why this subject? Well, there's a few reasons as to why the subject. Number one, I'm a mom of a 21-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. So this is a really important subject, I think, for them, especially in this day and age. And we're talking about ego and how respect and all those kind of things, and how you feel about yourself. And also with what I do with health and wellness, I'm in the health and wellness industry. A lot of it is also about what you think. Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Where your old habits were, your mindset, how your mind works, and things like that. And I've also recently dove deeper into mindset work and how you think, and your thoughts aren't necessarily what you think isn't necessarily true, and all this is how your mind works and operates and things like that. So I think it's a really important subject, especially in this day and age, to have the conversation about loving yourself, ego, how we present ourselves and to others.
Jennifer, if you're able.
Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. So hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Ramirez and I am from Chicago. I am the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization called And Rise. And our mission is to empower women to be the ultimate versions of themselves, no matter what adversities they face. So we offer free counseling, free support groups. We do financial education for women, professional development, and I also am a life and trauma coach. So I do life coaching, but with the trauma twist to it. And I like this topic because I work with a lot of women that have been through trauma and abuse, and how the mind can really change after that, how our thought process can change, and how our identity even can change. So I thought this was really I think this is a really important topic for us to talk about as women. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Iris van Nespen. I'm from Belgium. And I am an ER physician, but I quit my job a few months ago. And now until recently, I was coaching women also to empower them to live to actually remember who they are and live in their strength. But very recently, I discovered I want to do something even more. I'm directing my attention more to people who actually really want to change the world. So activists and organizations that are going in and fighting for our planet. And why this subject? Because I believe the way out is in, and it always starts with yourself. And the self is ego, but the self is so much more than just you. And my mission is to empower people to go into deep love and deep listening, because I believe that it's with deep listening to each other that we can actually change the world. Because if we don't know what the other one is thinking and feeling, and our ego is taking the first place, and we think we know what needs to happen without knowing what the other one really wants, I think we're not going to find a solution. So that's one of my missions, is to get people back to their hearts and to their ears as well. Voilà.
Hi, I'm Tessa van Keekan. I'm from the Netherlands and living there again as well, but I lived 15 years in Ireland. I'm still a coach, but really it's more like, well, most people would call me more like a guide or mentor. And my main thing at the moment is I have a group of people that I guide that come together from all over the world. We meet online mainly, where we, through guidance and healing, discuss basically stuff that happens in life and how to deal with that and how to embrace life, but then also through that, how to embrace yourself as well. And I think this is also why this topic is so much of interest to me, that beside that, I also work for charity with people with psychological and psychiatric issues, where a lot of the time people struggle when they cling too much to their ego identity, and also that they have had a lot of experience in life where they felt really lost and felt they lost their own identity, and then start holding on more to that. But then actually by embracing their deeper self, their true self, if you want, that then they learn there's this other identity which goes deeper than that, which is also more flexible, which is less static, if you like. And then to also, what some others said as well, how to then really connect to that and express themselves in a way that they are really seen for who they really are, instead of like by all the identities or identifications, if you like. So I think that's really helps a lot of people, especially those who have gone through traumatic experience, and especially those who've been in maybe narcissistic relationships or things, or with a narcissist, because there you can really feel lost, but then you also sometimes start holding on to the things that aren't actually really you, but are more like identities from the outside.
My name is Torie Brame, and I have, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm originally from Londonderry, New Hampshire. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about my struggle with lupus and anxiety and depression and just like my journey to remission, basically. I've been in remission for 4 years now, so I'm still going strong. And I'm fascinated by this subject. I mean, mainly I'm here because I want to learn from you guys because dang. But I am very fascinated in this subject just in ways that ego can hold you back. Like, you know, either like, I don't deserve this, or, you know, I can't believe this is happening to me, or like something like that. And it stalls you from actually moving forward to having it not happen to you or moving into something else. And so I really feel like anybody's healing journey starts with the release of that. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here.
I love it. Thank you so much, Torie. So for those of you listening live, we appreciate you being here and supporting us. Thank you, ladies, for introducing yourselves. We can all use a perspective in this area. So I encourage all of you listening to share this podcast right now and comment where you are from. Also, this is an interactive forum, so feel free to comment any questions or comments that you have on this subject, and it may just pop up on screen so the ladies can interact with you one-on-one live. I would love to start out by handing the floor over to Miss Elizabeth for her question.
Woo woo! I've never gone first before. Usually I'm like in the part of the discussion when I'm like, okay, I've narrowed down my question because I have to pick a question. So the one that I picked was sort of centered around this idea that when we say something great about ourselves, it can be, you know, bragging essentially, and that is an egotistical behavior, categorized as an egotistical behavior. So I actually want to hear from all of you ladies, what is something that is just fact that someone might hear you say and be like, wow, she's got a big ego, but it's just a freaking fact. Who's going to go first? Should I go first? Do you want me to go first? Yes. I'm a really awesome artist and I'm really great. I have a fantastic sense of aesthetics and a great sense of color. Who's going to go next? Yes. Snapping. Iris, yes.
I can
I think
honestly say
sorry.
that I've reanimated several tens of people, and that my rate of getting people back to life was actually quite high. So I'm very proud of that. But yeah, it's not something you say because it's bragging as well. But that was a very proud part of my job that I'm maybe not going to miss because it's very stressful at the same time.
Ileana?
Yes, thanks. So this isn't just me talking. This is other people have told me that probably my super number one gift is connecting to other people very quickly on a heart level. So I form really deep soul relationships all over the world, which is why I've traveled everywhere. So I have friends all over the world. It's a global community. And this is not bragging. This is absolute truth. And I also think we need to celebrate ourselves when we have a wonderful talent like this, instead of beating ourselves up and saying, oh, I shouldn't be talking about that because people are going to think forget that nonsense. You have to celebrate yourself. And we do talk about this in our women's program. When we encourage them to celebrate themselves and their authentic selves and who they are, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's self-loving, and this is what we all need more of.
Yeah. Amen. Caren.
I actually have two things. Number one, what you see is what you get. I'm real, I'm not fake, there's no BS. And I was almost going to curse. And I cursed like a sailor, and I'm okay with that. And number two is that I've always been everybody's therapist. Like literally everybody's like, I can't believe I said that to you, or something like that, which is which is why it's great that I'm in health and wellness now, because that's what I do. I listen to people. But everybody always comes to me with their issues, with their problems and things like that. And Ileana, you're so right. We're taught to not, well, it's bragging and you shouldn't say, and, you know, and really, why shouldn't we, all of us, be celebrating ourselves? Because we're all, each of us, unique individuals who are amazing in our own rights.
Excellent. Who's next?
I am a really good public speaker. I have to do it from, I manage a center for Trident United Way here in Charleston. And so I have to give presentations all the time, sometimes to, 100 people. And sometimes it's at the drop of a hat. And that is one thing that I know, well, my boss knows too. She can always call on me and I'll always do it and I'll always do a good job. And yeah, I'm able to get people engaged, and it always kind of surprises me too, because I'll go into it and I'm like, I didn't prep, I don't know what I'm doing, and then I'll just start talking and people are nodding along and everything. So yeah, that's my brag.
All right, who's next? Lisa?
I am good at being lucky. And my whole life, I somehow fall into luck. And I realize that it's a skill. It's how you look at things and having your peripheral vision open, because I always say expect miracles to people and my clients. And when you expect miracles, you see them. And if you don't, you're just kind of going through life with blinders on. And if you open yourself up, there's so many opportunities and the answers are everywhere. So I'm very good at going within and whatever is happening and figuring it out by not figuring it out, not using your head, but going into your soul and just letting something come out. But somehow through my whole life, I've taken a lot of risks, like going to Iraq by myself during the Gulf War to meet Saddam Hussein and to get kidnapped by Al Qaeda so I could collaborate with them and figure out world peace in Iraq and around the world, and just talk to them about why they do what they do, because I've worked in so many prisons and all these places where I met with the Hells Angels, and I always could connect very easily and effortlessly with people that are on the opposite side of the law or are troubled. So yeah, I think that's my superpower.
Awesome. Who is next? Everyone's going. I'm not letting anybody go. Liying.
Ooh, wow. Okay. I'm very good at going slowly, so that's probably why I'm here right now speaking towards the end. I'm really good with writing from the heart to the heart. I think what I'm really good at, that I actually found out because of what I've gone through, is that I'm really good at moving through the unknown and coming out of it and realizing what is actually happening and the lessons that I needed to take from there. And I think that's where I'm at. I think it's like what I feel everyone is saying. We have to share our truth. We have to share our sparkling diamonds, like the ones that we're hiding away. And I'm thankful for this question, because you've allowed all of us to really shine today. So thank you, Elizabeth.
You are welcome. Who's next? Jennifer, Tessa? Sabrina?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I can go. So I do agree with what Liying just said about just talking about our accomplishments. And as women, we're not really supposed to do that because it's bragging and you have to just be pretty and smile. And that's just our only jobs in life. So I think, like she said, it's important to share our accomplishments. So really quickly, I was able to go from a broke single mom, trauma survivor, to acquiring properties and starting side hustles and then starting this nonprofit. And I always share that story because you never know who it can impact. I always had low self-esteem for many years of my life. So to be able to move forward and move past trauma and abuse and be successful, I think is really important, especially as women, so that we can show other women that it can be done who might be feeling like it can't be done. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to contribute. Thank you. This is an awesome, great question, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Tessa?
Yeah, so thank you very much for the question. And I also think it's so good because it's one of the things that whatever work I do with other people, I absolutely hate the question too. Because, and every time it happens, it's so funny. Like if I say something, if someone asks me that question or we talk about something that's good, then I get like kind of that, you know, feeling of like a lump in your throat, like anxiety in the chest, incredibly flushed face. And I think it's also for a lot of people, like, you know, to remember that that's okay, that if you feel like that, but then to not let that hold you back, to then go back and to try, because I think we all did that. Well, most of us did that, I think, you know, then to start justifying where it's okay you're saying it because other people think it too, or that you're saying, well, but actually, you know what, but sometimes it's not so good or so. So to actually own it and to say, like, you know what, even if it makes you feel scared, even if it does make you feel a bit anxious and a bit whatever, do it. You know, it doesn't matter. Even if no one else sees that quality in you, if you know it's true, it's true. So I think that's, I just would like to say as well, because we can sometimes otherwise think we need some approval from someone else. So for me, despite other people also saying it, just to give myself a little bit of thank you.
I was going to say, what's yours?
So mine is like, I know that I can go like really easily to the deeper core of what people are experiencing, so that even if they're talking about the issue here, that I already feel it, and then I can go there. And when I was younger, I would do that a bit more bluntly, and now I've really learned to do that in a way that I can then reflect that back in a way that they are able to actually go there and face it if they choose to. And I think that really helps me in my work, but it also helps me in my own connections. And and the other thing is that I can very easily bring people together, like even if there is a lot of conflict, to really mediate in a way to, again, put myself in the different shoes and slowly make them see different perspectives so that they can actually connect, even if they thought they were on complete opposites. And that reflects then in like that I as easily do a presentation with people who are maybe more like on the hippie alternative side, or people that are like, I do things with embassies or with like corporate, and just that kind of going into different spaces and make people feel comfortable.
Excellent. Sabrina.
I would say that I am really good at holding space for others to shine. I think that's what I would say. Community, and not feeling as if I always have to be the one with all the answers, and allowing other individuals in my life to showcase their own knowledge. I've come to a real realization over the course of many years that I know all the things that I already know. So I already know all the things that I know. The only way to know more is to allow other people to speak. And they know stuff that I don't know. And that's part of the reason why I hold these panels is, you know, I come feeling like I have an understanding of what ego and identity is, but what a better way to be able to broaden my own thought process than to have other, you know, individuals with their own life experiences be able to shine and be able to, for me to be able to hold space for them to speak.
And you do it so beautifully. We thank you for it.
Thank you.
That was my question.
Awesome. Did everyone go?
I think so, yeah.
I love it. Liying, you're up.
Ooh, okay. So I want to throw this up for discussion. One of the key things that I do in my work is to really allow a woman who's immensely creative and immensely tapped in to understand that we all have built a certain kind of ego, but I call it a protective personality. So that has been built as almost like a fortress to ensure that we sort of survive in the way that we had to, in whatever circumstance we were born into and whatever circumstance we had to experience throughout our lives, that has led us to the space where become to the place where we finally say, oh, there is a truth in me that I cannot deny, and I need to go on that path to unfold that. So my question would be, do you think, or what are your thoughts, I suppose, in terms of that protectiveness of the ego, the protectiveness in relation to the ego or the identity that we had to build? Do you believe in that? What are your thoughts on it? Whatever that's coming up for you. Yeah, go ahead, Caren.
I'm actually exploring this within myself, so it's actually very interesting that you brought this up. That's why when you were talking, I was like, "Oh my God!" I don't think it's an ego. I think honestly, it's things that people have said to you that you may not have realized, or things that may have been done to you that were sort of like in the unconscious way. You know, things your parents have said to you, whatever. That you formed a limiting belief for it. You didn't even necessarily realize it at the time. Or like in my personal case, there was a control issue. I just recently learned this about myself. So it's a protective thing, like or a protective thing where you laugh at things, or because it's the only way you know how to deal with the thing that you're dealing with, but you don't necessarily know what it is. Like to speak personally about this, I didn't know what it was. Like I didn't know it was a limiting belief. I didn't understand what it was. I just I just knew this is how I was acting, and because of my environment, but I didn't know all of that at the time. And it recently came to head because I I was like, I need to do more. I need to understand what's going on here. I felt the pull to do something. So I don't think we necessarily realize what it is a lot of times until we perhaps get to a point in our lives where we like, wait, I want more, or wait, or there's something else within us that says, wait, I don't want this to be the way it is anymore, whatever that may be. And then we go explore it. And in my case, I learned there was a control. It was definitely, I was controlling things. My whole life, I was controlling everything because that was my safety. Because if I controlled things, or at least I thought, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's not it wasn't, there was no ego attached to it at all. It was, I thought that was how it was supposed to be, and I didn't know what it was. And that's the beauty of ego, identity, and all the things, because you can then realize, wait, this isn't the way I want to feel anymore. And you don't necessarily know what it is, but then you can say, okay, what can I do to make the necessary changes so I don't feel that way anymore?
I absolutely love that. And actually, that brought to mind one of the sayings that we have in Zen, which is the person of the world puts on something every day, and the person of the Tao, as they call it, or the way, takes off something every day. And I think that, oh, it gives me chills every time, because it's like what you said, like you kind of knew, and then it was just like, you didn't know why you were acting that way, but you just kind of knew that needed to fall away for you. So thank you so much, because that protection it provided was essential for you at one point, but you were willing to let it down. So thank you for sharing that. Ileana, is that right?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things we discuss in our women's program is how we are all conditioned throughout our lives as women, how to think of ourselves, what our abilities are, which path we should take, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, how loud we should speak, how we should dress, how we should wear our hair. Absolutely every single aspect of our lives is controlled since infancy. And most of the time, these ideas and beliefs become subconscious programs that run us from behind the scenes. And so we stop ourselves from reaching higher, from really reaching our authentic potential, whatever that may be, because we have been taught that being ourselves is not acceptable. We have certain roles to play, and we have to behave in a certain way in the patriarchal society. And this is something that is holding all of us back. We all wear this armor around ourselves without even realizing it. So some of the work we do is bringing unconscious beliefs into consciousness so that we can begin to transform them into more empowering beliefs. And this is where the women's empowerment piece comes in, because as long as the programs are unconscious, they will run your life. So yes, absolutely, they are all there, and they are part of the ego. They just become internalized, and we believe that this is how it's supposed to be. until something shatters that, then you begin to think, well, maybe not. And that's the beauty of it. Maybe not.
Thank you, my love. I absolutely adore what you said because, again, it's just one of those things where I felt, working with the women that I work with, it's something because we're so conditioned to achieve a certain way of being, and in the society's eyes, it's like saying, oh, that is the truth of who you are because you're now successful or you're now not successful like this or that way, and to break that down. In my experience, I felt that it needed to be something to be really, like you said, it has to be de-internalized, if that makes sense.
Brought to consciousness.
Exactly. And, I just love what you said because what really happens when we start to, in the work that I do, integrate the mind and the body and the spirit, because we come into that space in the body where it's held so much of that as well. It's not just an intellectual thing they understand, they actually embody that spirit of a free, beautiful, embodied woman, like free from all of those conditioning. So thank you. I love that. Anyone else want to chime in? Iris, I think I see you. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Unmute. Okay. I just wanted to say like something about that because I completely agree with everything all of you said. And for me, there's also always been this control of myself, and I don't want it. I know why. I'm slowly knowing why I'm doing it. But a few weeks ago, with another coach, we were talking about feelings and how you have this pathway to freedom, which starts with suffering. And the next stage is apathy, when you're really like numb. And when you start feeling more, you become sad. And the next level after sadness is anger. And then you have your fear. And then if you go through your fear, so if you use all your emotions as fuel to go through your fear, after your fear, it's like a pyramid, you're in your freedom. So you can do it in several ways, like to use them. And I discovered for me that my anger was often pushed down, so I would always control it. And I don't think anger is for the other person. I don't think it's good to yell at somebody or but my coach said, you have to scream. You have to go take a pillow and just scream in the pillow, or go outside or scream in your car. And I actually realized I'd never done that in my life. Like the real, like, so I went outside. We have a beautiful tree at the back of the garden. I took my pillow and I screamed, and it was just like, this release, of energy. I think I have to do it again in a few days. But that was the first time of my life that I really screamed. And I was like, how can I be that I'm 44? My 40, yeah, now, and I've never released that energy in that way. So yes, this conditioning of keeping it in, even though I have parents where I could, part of my mom, I could be completely myself, and still, because of the other stuff, I kept my anger inside. So I would say stuff to my kids, but like the real. So yeah, I think we're conditioned to keep everything inside. And at one part, you go down the pathway and you become numb, and you're just sitting there and everything is happening around you because you don't have the energy anymore to do something about it.
Beautiful.
I feel
anger, all of us women have been told not to show that side of us. It's bad to be angry. It's bad to be sad, right? So
I love it. Liying, do you want to wrap up, and then we are moving on to Lisa?
Thank you.
Lee, are you going to wrap up, or?
All good. Handing over to you.
Okay, so yeah, I wrote this book about soul blazing, And it really is about everything we're talking about. So it's so exciting being around you women who are from all over the world, which I love. And we're all in the same lane of life. We all want to grow and learn, and we want to know about the ego and the soul. And I think it's the most fascinating subject because you can't live an authentic life if you don't know who you are, and you have to be yourself because everyone else is taken. And if you don't know who you are, someone will tell you who you are, and that's who you'll be. And we've all had these childhood wounds since we were kids. And I just wanted to read a little something from the book. It's we all find masks when something happens to us as a child. In order to cope with it, we have to find a mask to wear, and it's almost like a scar. This happened to me, so how do I relate to that kind of person? This is the mask I wear to relate to that person. Then you're in school and it's this mask. So each mask represents someone or something powerful in both the positive and negative sense of the word. In the world of soul blazing, each mask we wear represents an imposter. In my work, I've identified 7 of them. So what exactly is an imposter? So there's 7 archetypes that we develop to protect ourselves from various insecurities and wounds that we experience during childhood. They're the victim, the egotist, the seductor, joker, fixer, overthinker, and the judge. So my question to you guys would be, when you felt emotionally abandoned as a kid or something happened, even if it was for 1 minute, sometimes 1 minute in your life could lead your whole life in a certain direction. I've met people in my coaching program when they're 50s and 60s. Well, when I was in 3rd grade, my dad did this, or my mom did that, or a teacher said that. And it was like 1 minute of their life, 1 sentence, and they're living their whole life. I'm dumb. I'll never be good enough. I'm fat. I'm useless, whatever it is. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how sad is that? That someone that we trusted labeled us, and now that's our identity. So your job is to look at that and say, I say name it and claim it. So look at that. Who gave it to you? And what mask have you been wearing? And what work did you do to help dissolve it? If you've dissolved it. And if you haven't, you could talk about it too. But if you've dissolved it and said, wow, I've always been living my life this way, and it stopped, and now this is how I'm living my life. So go ahead, Caren.
Literally doing that right now. And by the way, I didn't know overthinker was one of those things, FYI. So thank you for teaching me that today. Because victim, I was 100% totally the victim, but the overthinker, I hadn't realized that was part of my trauma, if you will. But I played the victim card. I mean, I could have won an award. I was great at it. I was so good at it. But I realized that's when I actually started doing my health and wellness journey, actually, to be fully transparent, was because I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I had seen all these people, start using the products and start changing their lives and go into personal development. I used to think personal development was hokey crap, to be perfectly honest. I was like, I thought it was like some Kool-Aid thing. I thought it was insane. But when I saw people with my own eyes really changing their ways, if you will, I was like, okay. So I knew I played the victim, and that was something I didn't know why. Again, I didn't know why. And so I started delving into personal development and things like that. But the last year and a half, I was like, there has to be more. I need to really get rid of. I realized it was limiting beliefs. I realized I was holding myself back. I realized all those things. And so I've been actually, that's how Sabrina came into my life. And I've also been working with Tracy Litt. I'm not sure if anyone of you know who she is, but she does similar. A lot of you talk about the empowered and getting rid of the limiting beliefs. And so to your point, it's going back into childhood and what happened. What did somebody say to me that led me to believe I played the victim and everything like that? What's my new belief? And doing the work and the healing and the screaming, which by the way is a phenomenal thing to do, and FU conversations, like just all the modalities of releasing the feelings and the trauma to then say, you know what, I'm no longer the victim, I'm the victor. This is how I'm going to live my life. And that's what I've been doing. It's new beliefs. It's embodying the beliefs. It's meditation. It's embodying all the messiness of healing. so that I can come out on the other end and be true.
Yes. And I think that's so important. One way I really work on that is declarations, where you look at your issue and then you say, who gave it to me? And then you create a declaration instead of just an affirmation from YouTube. You really use from what your issue is and create it of who you want to be, your new belief, and record it, listen to it on your recording, put it up on your wall, say it to yourself in the morning, and tell your closest inner circle to say that to you. Like I had a client who woke up every day and said, it's another soul sucking day. And I'm like, Ma, that's an awful way to see your life. Then if this was wrong, that was wrong. Of course it did. It's another soul sucking day. What's another way? How are you this morning? Oh, I wake up with clarity and I love life, you know? So then you ask the closest people in your life to say, oh, I could see you have a lot of clarity this morning, and God, you're so joyful today. You know, just reinforcing it. So you're not just saying it, but other people are reinforcing it for you, you know, because just like in life, when you dance, you're not going anywhere. You're just moving your feet and you're having fun and being in the moment. So you don't always have to take steps to get someplace. It's about being in the moment and loving yourself, nurturing yourself too. So who's next? Who else has it? Okay, go ahead, Elena.
Identifying those really negative beliefs that you have is so important. So bringing them to light and then looking at them and saying, is this really true? And then rewriting them in an empowering way. And we have this exercise that we encourage our participants to do, to record the positive beliefs, the empowering beliefs, to the sound of their own voice, and then to play it to themselves at least for 21 days before they go to bed. So this takes advantage of the theta brainwaves when you're most relaxed, and your subconscious is just accepting messages without your conscious mind interfering and starting to ask questions. So this becomes like a very powerful exercise to reinforce those really positive beliefs about yourself that you want to emphasize. And it's a different way that you want to live, because often it's more than just one belief. It's kind of like a cluster that form, you know, over the years, right? Like a mesh that kind of encapsulates you. So being able to break that down and listening to that without any judgment, and being able to do that for at least 21 days, because that's how long it takes to break a habit, is highly empowering. So I would really, really suggest that. I really got the whole idea about rewriting the beliefs in a way that is empowering and not listening to the really horrible messaging that we've had before that sometimes we didn't even know we had.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're talking about the cluster, what I work with clients with, I equate it with like a ball of yarn. And here's the yellow thread. What is that? You know, get up, you know, it's all in your brain, get it, pull out the red thread. What's that one telling you? And the green thread, you know, just going through it all. And once you organize it, you could actually attack it, because if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? So now you're looking at it as an individual, and you can handle that. It's bite-sized pieces. I always call it the 3-foot toss. Don't work on the whole thing, just, you know, one bite at a time.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. And what you're saying about the recording, that's what I was saying earlier. Yes, record it, write it down. But it's also good if someone you really admire records it for you. So you're listening to someone else, you know, so that will empower you from whatever voice it was when in your childhood who said it. Now here's someone currently in your life that you feel empowered by.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so if you listen to both, it's wonderful. Yeah. Next. Anyone else want to comment on it? Okay. Go ahead.
So one thing I found that really works for me, at least, is thinking about the person that said that and what they had going on, and like why they probably said it, and how you have said that just in the moment as well, like to somebody else. I feel like it takes all sting out of the wound, where it's like, you know, of course they said that, like I was 8, or, you know, I was being really annoying, and they were just, they didn't want to deal, like, or they were embarrassed or something like that, where it's like, I feel like it takes everything personal out of it. And for me, it's like, it's easier to release it if you just realize that like they are you, just in a different way, and just knowing that, you know, those things that you've been saying to yourself are just because somebody didn't want to deal for like a second, you know. And it's like that little moment is something that you're hanging on to that is really not necessary or serving you.
And if you think about it, they're very dysfunctional too. So you're listening to a dysfunctional person who doesn't like themselves or didn't do work. And now that, you know, they're going to, you know, define your whole life. Are you
Exactly.
kidding?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no way. So I just wanted to end it with, you know, a parable about a wolf. And, you know, we have two wolves inside us, and I call it, one's your ego, which is what I say are the imposters, and the other one's your authentic soul. So in life, your imposters are, you know, jealousy and anger, sorrow, self-pity, and your authentic soul is everything, you know, compassionate, truth, kindness, joy. So whichever one you feed is the one that you're going to live your life by. So you have a choice. Every day you get to make a choice. Who do I want to be in the world? So make the choice of the positive wolf, you know, your soul, and just fill yourself with that. So thank you.
Ileana, you are up.
Thank you. So this is such a stimulating conversation, ladies. It's really good to be here with all of you. Let's talk a little bit about the ego and confidence, because we have a question here. Actually, one of the somebody who's watching asked, I try to be confident as a woman and have been told a couple of times that I need to check my ego. How do I work on confidence and it not come across as ego? This is definitely a question that we run up against constantly when we're doing our program, because our first course is on confidence. And how do you build your confidence? And how is confidence different than arrogance? Because there are huge differences between being confident and being arrogant. So I would love to hear from you ladies what you think about the question that's been asked of us. How do you become confident without being in the ego and overinflating who you are and those kinds of things?
I'd like to answer this one.
Sure.
Thanks. So I say own it. I think that people who exude confidence, sometimes you're this bright light and other people don't like to see that because maybe they're not in a good place themselves. So your light makes them not feel so good about themselves. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with being confident as a woman. I think it's wonderful. But I think going back to what we've talked about previously, that society shuns us for being confident because then we're conceited and we're cocky, and you can't be that, you know, as a woman. But when you're a man, confidence is an amazing trait. And so I say own, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, you know? So whatever it is that they're telling you to kind of check your ego, I say make it vibrate times 10. You know, that's just my personal take on it, because I think that your confidence is what other women need to see in order for them to kind of come out with theirs, because we've been told that confidence is a bad thing as a woman. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Iris?
I have to ask my question. I just wanted to know how you know your when you're doing something, how do you know it's your ego talking or your authentic self? Sometimes I know that I'm like, this is not really me, this is something else talking. Or this is my in ego as in my pretend me. So we all have different ideas of ego, but this way it would be to be.
Yeah, I think with confidence and ego, I think you can be confident, but if it's coming from a false self, your imposters, then it comes across as ego and, oh, they're bragging. And I don't care for those type of people, because you just look at them and go, oh, how sad. They're so insecure and they're pretending to be confident. So I think when you're confident and really comes from your authentic soul, because you really know who you are and you're stepping in your power, that's amazing. Yeah, so I think you got to differentiate between the two, the false confidence and the real confidence.
And I think it also comes, there's a place in here, it's your solar plexus, which is your power center. It will come from there as opposed to coming from your head. That's my personal feeling has always been like that. This is what I tell other women. You will know when you have gained the confidence to be who you are because of where you speak from and where your power comes from. And you will just know it innately. Caren.
And to both your points, Lisa, and it's also about loving yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you step into your power? How do you do all the things that you both are talking about? It starts with loving yourself unconditionally. So if it goes back to the beliefs, exactly, it goes back to the empowering and all the beliefs that we're talking about earlier. I love myself, I'm learning to love myself. What a empowering belief that I have is, starting to love yourself unconditionally and freely. And when you do that, that's when your confidence starts to arise. And you're like, you know what? I love myself. I'm fabulous. I'm awesome. I'm this. And that's when you step into your power and gain your confidence and be your authentic self.
Sabrina.
I think it's also, thank you, Caren. I think it's also important to possibly recognize that the person who tagged this on you doesn't know the definition of ego or could have a different definition than what your definition is. So I think it's also important to recognize that they also might, just like narcissism has that same thing. When I got into the world of narcissism, I realized that what I thought narcissism was is totally different than what it actually is. People misuse the word constantly in context that makes no sense whatsoever. So the people who are possibly labeling the ego of whatever you're doing or how you're acting could have a different definition than you.
And it's also about perspective, right? Every single person comes at everything from their own perspective. And sometimes people get threatened by women who are confident. And they see them as too much, overbearing, too loud, whatever the case may be. So yeah, absolutely. Anyone else? Jennifer? Did you have a comment? Sorry. No, it was Tessa.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I think what happens sometimes, I think, is when we start, find something in ourselves where we feel not confident or there's something we're struggling with, that then when we're working on it, then we want to show I'm okay. So then when I'm actually not feeling it, because I don't like the feeling of if there's something about myself that I don't like, regardless what other people think. So then I think sometimes we can confuse being confident with kind of hiding the stuff we don't want others to see. And I think that also sometimes can result in then it coming across as ego, because if I'm hiding how I really feel or what's really there, and I say, for instance, what you see often happening is when someone says, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it. But then it's not really confidence from me. It's more like, I don't want to go there and I don't want to see that part. And it's not even whether it's whether it's truly there or whether it can't be also other sides. But it's like, I'm not at peace with it yet. So it comes back, people said it, really loving yourself, accepting yourself. So if I haven't accepted it, that I can't really change it, not inside and not outside. So I think there's also that part, again, to go even one step back, if you like, and actually start like, hey, how am I actually feeling about that? Like, regardless of what that other person, whether they're right or wrong, but how does that, why does it bother me that they're saying that? How do I feel about that? And then to see, is this theirs? Is this something that I think, well, no, they're wrong. This is not how this is for me. Or is it like, oh, actually, you know what? They touched something because I was hiding that and I didn't want to go there. But actually, again, regardless of that other person, it's not necessarily about them. But if this is something that I go, oh, to be really, truly able to accept myself and to be truly confident, I need to do something with something there. So I think and to then also accept that you might not be ready right now, and that's also okay. But just to notice that. And that comes also back to what you said, Iris, about knowing whether you're really speaking from your true self, your ego. I think it's that. When you are brave enough to go a bit deeper and say, how does this feel for me? And then then it's so easy.
Very good, Iris. Yeah.
I just wanted to, for me, what I'm trying to do now, I always, with a lot of feelings, I'm trying to ask myself, does this come out of a feeling of fear or of love? And if it comes out of fear, I know for me, it's not the way I want to go. And if it comes out of love, I'm like, okay, no, this was done with the good feeling inside. And it's actually for me, a really easy way of knowing what I'm doing or of knowing if from where I'm coming. And I do it with a lot of feelings. So
that takes a lot of self-awareness, right? Self-awareness is definitely one of the things we always have to work on, so that we're kind of checking in with ourselves. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. Somebody just accused me of being in my ego. Is that really true? Does that feel right for me? You know, as Tessa said, exactly. Sometimes they hold up a mirror, but sometimes the mirror is not true. It's distorted, and it's actually their stuff. So yeah, it takes a lot of perseverance and understanding to go to those places, for sure. Anybody else, ladies? Caren.
An image that I keep having coming up, and I just had recently also for myself, is a lot of the times, confidence, ego, identity, all the things, we think if we make changes to it or something like that, we may lose who we truly are. And so there may be some sort of trepidation against doing so. And an image that came to me recently that I just wanted to share that may help you guys and others is, if you watch the movie Grease, because I'm a huge 70s and 80s freak. But if you watch the movie Grease, at Sandra Dee, Olivia Newton-John is Sandra Dee, and then she realizes she has to become what they call "quote unquote" Bad Sandy. But at the core, she was still who she was. You know what I'm saying? So at the core, you kind of remain who you are, but it's almost like you have to strip away a part of you in order to become a 2.0 version of you. And the ego and your limiting beliefs and your ego, in a way, you have to sort of surrender and let go and say, you know what? I have to go through this in order to become this.
Yes, and we're always a work in progress, right? Always a work in progress. Thank you so much, ladies. That was a great discussion.
Caren, you are up. However, there's another question. So do you want to ask your question, or do you want to take a question from the audience?
I'll take the question. I was going to take the question from our chat. I'll take the question from the audience. That's fine.
I feel bad. I totally put you on the spot there.
It's totally cool.
Okay, this is Veronica. If you want to read it out loud for the podcast.
Sure. I have recently been told that I have a big ego because I get offended by, I like this one, because I get offended by everything. I don't know why. It's so annoying, even to me sometimes. How do I start to curb this? I don't even know where to start. That's amazing. And by the way, you apparently know my 16-year-old son. But because you know what it is, when you're offended by things, it is what I'm learning. This is recently learning that it's also judgment. There's a judgment attached to being offended by things, and you're making it also about yourself. Sorry, Veronica, I love you very much, but I'm being honest here. So it's really like, ask yourself, why am I being offended? So where to start, in my opinion, would be, I had a 16-year-old girl too. They're not pleasant. But no, for real. She's 21 now. But what I'm saying is, how do you curb this? You don't know where to start. Where do you start? Why am I being offended? Ask yourself that question, and then just journal on it. Like, don't think about it. Like, the thing is, a lot of times, when you ask yourself, why am I blank? And then you start judging it. And that's where all of the talk in your head starts coming through. Why am I offended by this? And just start writing things down. Oh, I didn't like what she said. Well, why didn't I like what she said? And just be like what Tracy Litt calls, it's your non-judgmental observer. It's like you have a hologram self of you have you, and then a hologram self of you. And it's like you're looking at it from this angle back here of like, okay, wait, what did they say? And what did they say? And by the way, is it a truth? Meaning you're offended maybe because it's like, oh, wait, hey, that is me. I am doing that. And then you can sort of question, I don't want to say question yourself, but go through the process of figuring out, and maybe you don't figure it out, but maybe at least through the questions, some aha moments come up, some things come up that some realizations are coming up for you. And the getting offended, I know other people can speak to the getting offended, but when you get offended by something, it's sometimes, I know it's like, it's like, well, I don't like what she said, or there's an absolute judgment attached to it. So those are my views on it. And I see I saw Lisa and then Liana. So I guess Lisa can go, and then Liana, you can go next, and then Liz.
Yeah, I just think our thoughts create our reality. So you're bringing that into your life. Our lives are like a sum total of all of our choices. So I would look at that and say, why are people saying this to me? And why am I accepting it? And when you say you don't even know where to go with it, you go within, you start being self-reflective. And when did they say that? Or what am I doing that makes them say that? Because it all, starts and ends with you. And I feel that once you get clear on what are my thoughts, one thing I have clients do is a mind dump. Set the timer to 3 minutes and just don't think, just close your eyes and just start writing whatever pops in your mind. They say we have 40 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and most are negative and most are repeated. So what are you saying to yourself every day that makes people feel this way about you? So I would really, once you figure that out and once you get clarity, once you make different choices and you set up, your intention, because your intention of who you are creates your reality. So who do you want to be? Write that down. See what your thoughts are, all the negative ones. Do what I said earlier, the declarations. Turn it into a positive. Start saying it to yourself all the time. Record it and have someone else record it for you.
I love all of that, and I just want to tag on to that for 1 second. One of the things is also write a 1-year vision.
Yes.
So to that point, mind dumps are amazing. But to that point of who do you want to be, and then write the 1-year vision. Who does she, and who do you want to be? Also encompasses what is she wearing? What does she look like? Who is she with? Get deep down, and then do everything Lisa said. Okay.
I love that.
Go ahead. I can't see your name, but Liana, right?
Liying. Okay, so thank you for all that. I'm just gonna latch on that and say, I personally have experienced all of that, whatever that Veronica is bringing forth today. What I found to be really, really, really transformative for me is also something that I teach my clients now. I just found that all of the things that you said, writing it all down and all of that, just went to a very intellectual place for me. And I used to think, oh, I get it all right now when I'm in a meditative space. But then when I go out there, again, it's happening again. Why is that? And so I actually found what really, really was so life-changing is to actually really feel what is going on in my body. Because and that is the embodiment practices that I truly, truly just devote myself to every single day. I get into my body. I ask myself, and I have gone through that, by the way, even when I was quote unquote spiritual, oh my God, this is triggering me. Oh my God, why are they coming up for me? And I love what Lisa and Caren had said. It is coming up for us to really reflect upon something that's going on in me that wants me to see. To take that one step further, I think what happens when we work with the energy within us, to work with the energy field that forms us, our physical body, and our thoughts, by the way, it happens so much quicker because now I can feel it and then I can transmute that energy through my breath, through my feelings. I'm not hiding from them. I'm not suppressing them. I'm like, okay, I'm triggered. I'm offended because I have this judgment for myself in this area. And I'm going to breathe into it. I'm going to love into it. And that's it. And I think I would really, really honor Veronica for stepping up and sharing this, because it is huge to be able to feel this and see this. So the next step I would say is definitely feel into it. Where in the body are you feeling it? And yeah, that's my take on it.
I also, to your point, love that, by the way, feelings amazing. But also you made me think of something also, Veronica, also kudos, but where are you putting your focus and attention? Because what you're focusing on is things that you're getting. So it may be that you're meeting, where are you putting your focus and attention? I'll just leave it at that question. And then Liz, I know you had something to say.
Every once in a while, I get to a point in these impact panels when I like have just vomited all over my notebook and I'm like shaking because there's something that I want to share. So, Veronica, thank you for your question. And Caren, thanks for holding space for it. Echoing what has already been said. Yeah, absolutely. When you're going through this, try to identify where in your body you're feeling it, because that can be an indicator that can help you identify like what exactly is going on. And then if it's a situation, all of the situations are neutral that we're in. What are you making it mean is the best, in my experience, one of the best questions that you can ask. And usually if there's something that you're getting offended by, it's because you're making it mean something about you. And I want to recognize that this is a very deep feminine wounding that is shared. If you continue to journal on this, as has been suggested, like if you keep on asking, oh, that's an interesting thought, what else? And keep going down that rabbit hole, invariably, like we finally get to the answer of, well, then I won't be accepted and then I'll be exiled and I will starve and I will die. So at its root, it's fear. It's fear of not being accepted. So if you can kind of find where your thought pattern is bridging the I'm offended by this situation or this statement, and like where your brain thinks that you're going to be exiled by the clan, exiled by the tribe, then you can begin to interrupt it and change what's going on in your brain. So that's what I wanted to contribute. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, Sabrina.
Before we wrap up here, I want to tell on myself really fast, if that's okay with everybody. So I actually dealt with this minutes before the panel, and I'm not going to highlight anybody unless they want to highlight themselves, but this is me telling on myself. So when I have 9 people on stage, as we do today, that means 18 people signed up. I always have 50% show. So if there's 8 people, 16 people, if there is 12 people, 24 people originally. So those are all the people that I am contacting back and forth, 24 people. It's a lot. Okay. So I make mistakes. All the time in how people's names are put, their websites, their pictures, all the time. So I wake up in the morning with 3 emails of, some of you are smiling, of didn't put your picture up, didn't put the right picture up, didn't spell this, didn't spell that. And in my head, I'm like, dude, like, don't you know what it takes to do this? Like, why are you coming at me so aggressively with the mistakes I've made? And I had to like sit in the thought process of, how else are they supposed to tell me that there's a mistake unless they tell me that there's a mistake? Why am I feeling like they're yelling at me when they're possibly just saying like, hey, Sabrina, just so you know, if you want to change, like, why am I reading it with so much aggression when it might not even be aggression? It might just be them reiterating like, hey, I did all the things that you asked me to do. I sent the email like you told me to send the email. I am right. Like, I tried my best. I did good. I'm a good girl. I'm organized. And that could be them just being like, hey, I did all the things that you asked me to do because I'm good. And I'm just like, meh. So I really had to check myself this morning with how I was taking that in, and show up with love and show up with like, hey, made the change, no problem, with like no emotion attached, no ego attached, no identity, and just fix the things that needed to be fixed and just get on with my day and show up in love. So it happens even on these days.
I just want to, I know we have to wrap up, but I just want to hold space for you, Sabrina, for even showing up and saying all of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer, you're up.
All right, guys. So as women, I want to use my question to basically help the other ladies who are watching and inspire them. As women, we're always told that you can't be this and you can't do that. Only men do that, and only certain people or whatever, you know. So my question is, who have you been told that you can't be? And did you go against that? Did you end up, like doing something that they said that you can't do, or being the person that you wanted to be, maybe as a child? I don't know, maybe you wanted to be a teacher when you were a kid, and then they told you, no, you have to go be a doctor or something, and just kind of going against the grain. And I just want to share something really quickly is like, somebody had asked a question earlier about like being told that you can't do something, or like some type of limiting belief. And when I was growing up, I was told I had a learning disability. So I always had this identity that I wasn't smart my entire life. I always felt like I wasn't good enough, not smart enough, not qualified enough to do this and that. And it wasn't actually until I became a business owner that I realized how ingrained in me was. And then I would say maybe like in the last 2 years, I've been able to overcome that, because I'm like, look at all the things that I've accomplished in my life. That is such a false identity that, I think I've accepted and that other people told me about myself. So again, the question is, who have you been told that you can't be?
I'll just go. I've been told
Anyone?
I can't be many things many times. Oh, sorry. I think we overlapped. I think Sabrina knows my story a little bit. I was born into a Chinese family where we've been schooled and conditioned to think that we need to grow up to be a doctor or an accountant or whatever that brings money in, basically. But from a very early age, I've kind of always known I wanted to be a writer. And so I did all the things that my parents wanted me to do. Towards college, I remember there's a big dream where I wanted to go to a university in the United Kingdom. It was a very specific place that I really wanted to live in. And everyone around me told me that I would never be able to get into that university. And I hustled my way in. I did get in. And that actually, it almost solidified a belief that I need to work really hard to get in. And so for many years after that, I would censor the word, but it's almost like I had that belief. And so I carried that belief with me for a long time, to the point where I was anorexic. And for 10 years of my life, I had anorexia and various different eating disorders, because my mom was the main inner critic voice that I heard inside of me, that told me that I can't be, in a way, loved or accepted if I was a certain shape, body shape in specific. And even the skin color and everything, people around me were saying things like, you have to be really fair skin if you want to be loved or to find a boyfriend or whatever. And so for all my life, I pretty much carried those beliefs for myself. And so I think, and I think one of the things I really, really did overcome, and actually did become a beauty editor. That was the moment when I actually surrendered to the fact that I really didn't like to be someone who was working in marketing. My soul literally was dead every single day when I went to work, in that sense. And when I went into the magazine world, it was everything I wanted, everything. But again, I still held that belief that I needed to work really hard. I needed to put on a face, because I was told, again, you can't be in this industry if you are a certain way. And so I think I love your question, because I think it came to a point where I needed to I needed to really ask myself, what is the choice here? Do I continue doing things based on what is validated outside of me, or do I go ahead and do what my soul is asking me to do very, very vividly? And even then, it's funny, like how far in I had to go in terms of this kind of validation that we seek outside of ourselves, to the point where I had a health problem that came up, that I really said, I'm really going to seize life by like two hands, and I'm going to do what I want to do. And so that's when life started to unfold, because I really, for the first time, was living for myself. I didn't live because of someone else. And so, yeah, I think it's important to take those. And I honestly, I've reconciled with my mother. We have a beautiful relationship. I know she loved me in a way that was her own, and she lived in the way that she knew how to live. And I think, for me, every single day, I honestly come into a space where I ask myself, how can I release more of the identity that I think I know I am? And that has been the most beautiful thing that has been life-changing for me, because every day, sometimes when we're in this world as well, we're so caught up in terms of like how to be a coach, how to be a mentor. Oh my God, a mentor shouldn't do that. But when we step back and we just ask ourselves, how can we be authentic today? Like everything just unfolds, everything. It really is. And our story carries the vibration that will speak to your own people. That's what I believe. So thank you for allowing me space to share this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your transparency and for sharing all of that. That's wonderful. I think that's a perfect answer to the question. Anyone else? Yeah,
I
Iris.
just wanted to like thank you, Liying, and just for the audience, like listen to your body. It's so important, because our body speaks to us, and like as a doctor, I shouldn't say that, because we're not like, we don't think like that, but our body tells us exactly if we're doing the right thing or not. You feel it. And for me, one of the points, like I'm not going to go into it, but I had a brain tumor, and even that didn't slow me down. And it was my body talking to me like, you're not doing the right thing. You're not doing how you're not living your own life. So just listen to it, because it's talking to you and it's telling you to stop and to pause and to breathe and to start thinking about what you really want in life. So that's just what I wanted to add, because I thought it was a really powerful way of that you told your story, and I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Torie, let's hear from you.
So first of all, my parents are great. I just want to throw that out there. But for a few years, they probably saw my life as a walking middle finger to them. Just because I grew up in a very restrictive, very Christian household, extremely conservative. And I remember from a very young age not buying it, and just kind of like counting down the years until I turned 18 and I could move out. And so I think one of the biggest things was like, my parents were always very into like homeopathy and anti-vaxxing and stuff like that. And and so it's interesting that they were into that, but not into other like spiritual things, like yoga or astrology and stuff like that. And those are the things that I really connected with as an adult. And, there are things like tarot and astrology specifically are things that have really helped me over the years. And there are things that I share with other people now. I do readings with people and stuff like that. And I think that was like the biggest thing that I was not allowed to do. Like, fast forwarding scenes with fortune tellers and movies and stuff like that, it was like, that was not on the table at all. And yeah, that's something that I've definitely found healing through in my adult life. And it took me a while to kind of get past the mental barrier of like, I'm doing something bad, and, you know, get to a place where I'm like, this is how I meet God. Like this, you know, they meet him in their way, and this is how I connect spiritually. And so that's it.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I can actually resonate with that because I grew up in a very strict Christian household as well. So there's a lot of things that were like, no, you cannot do that. No, you cannot go there. Yeah, we were just literally in the house 24/7. And so when I actually got freedom, I kind of went a little crazy. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. But I think that's it, Sabrina, right? We're up for time. But thank you guys.
Yes. Iris, you're up.
Would you like me to ask a question okay. The question from the audience, from Veronica, is the goal to get rid of my ego? How can someone be without an ego? To me, depending on how you define ego, but to me, it's not getting rid of your ego. It's my question that I was going to ask, and I think it's a little bit connected, is when did you last define yourself? So because we have this identity about ourselves, and the last time a lot of us really defined who we were was when we were teenagers. And since then we've been living, and people have given us labels, and some of them they stick, and some of them they fell off. But we often didn't take the time to decide who we were. So your ego, I don't think you should live without an ego. I just think you should fine-tune your ego. You should fine-tune who you are. And when who you are comes from your heart and from your side of love, that's very beautiful. If it comes because you want to boast and you actually don't accept who you are, so you come out of a place of fear again, and then it's an other kind of ego talking. That's, for me, the word ego is very difficult to define. So the ego that's standing, you can't see it, but that's standing above you and that wants to boast. Yes, if you don't like it, get rid of it. Start thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I having these behaviors of like showing a part of me that is actually not really me, wanting to be, I don't know. I think it's a very difficult question, but I wouldn't say, no, you don't have to get rid of your ego, but just check in who you really are and show that part of you. Let it come out more and more. And so what other people call the ego will disappear slowly because you are showing who you really are. I don't know if that is a logical explanation, but that's how I feel it. Yes, please. Wait. Yeah, Tessa, please say something.
Thank you. Yeah, I often compare it to, like, you know, when we talk in meditation, for instance, letting go of your thoughts, that it's not that you will not have any thoughts. Well, most of us anyway don't manage much more than, I think the research says that if you can get like 30 seconds without thoughts, it's a really long time, even for an experienced meditator. So I think the idea that you would get rid of is like therefore problematic. But when we're setting let go, what I often do with my clients and my students is saying, like, letting go is not that they're no longer there, but they're no longer controlling you. And actually, it's not even so much that they're controlling you, but it's, again, people said it before, where do you put your attention? It's not, you're not holding on so much to it. So I think it may, and you may experience it as getting rid of, because people also talked about masks, so, and about masks falling off. So there is that sometimes that feeling of as if something goes away, but you're still you. And the thing is, I think with ego comes from both two things, like, and that you identify with all these labels, whether they come from other people or from yourself. And that you hold on to them as in, oh yeah, but if that goes away, who am I? And am I still me? And then I can't be me. And so there's both ways. So I think once you learn to go deeper, that you also see that, again, there is no static you, even your true self. It's not as if there's one static way of like, well, this is it. Because people said it's a lifelong journey. Otherwise it would be like, well, how does that work, right? And also you can see that the way you maybe talk to your partner or to your mother or to your child, it will all be slightly different the way you relate, not because you're not true to yourself, but because the way you are is fluid with how you interact with the world around you. So I think once you start seeing that you don't need that coat, that mask, that whatever you want to call it, and that you can be more fluid without feeling lost, without feeling like, oh, but who am I then? And am I me? That's like, so it may feel like getting rid of, but really it's more that it kind of can sink in and that you can be you.
Thank you. I actually completely, it's a very beautiful explanation. Caren? Oh, and yeah, Liz, I didn't see you. Elizabeth.
I'll
Caren,
be real quick, Liz, I promise. But I love what you just said, Torie. Sorry, not Torie. But I love what you just said, everything, Tessa, about all that. That was incredible. But I also think there's a negative connotation to the word ego. And I don't, because my definition of ego could be tied to confidence, which can be tied to then self-love. So it's not about getting rid of the ego per se, but it's about, if you're arrogant. So if ego it could come across differently to different people. But if your ego is, I'm fabulous and I bring this to the table, and that's confidence, that's showing what you have and what you offer to others. But if it's coming across like as a mask, as something that you're using to shield from something, then you're not getting rid of it, exactly like Tessa said. But it's a question of how you're using it per se. And by the way, it shouldn't be a negative connotation, because it's whatever that the labels, the limits, all the things that we have upon us, whether self-imposed or not, it's not negative in the sense of we can come from it as a place that we can learn from it, that we can grow from it, that we could empower it. So like what I like to say also is, what's the empowering version of the story? So what's the empowerment from it? And learn and take a step back and say, where am I coming from when I'm saying X, Y, and Z? What are my thought patterns? What am I focusing on? Because no, I don't think anybody can be without ego, to be perfectly honest with you. I think because ego confidence. And so when you have confidence, that's what comes across.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I want to kind of hang on the tails of what Caren just said, and expand a little bit on this perception of the concept of ego. And like when you look it up, the dictionary definition is just your sense of self. And so back to the question that I asked earlier, what are you making that mean? And your sense of self is incredibly important to, I mean, you should have a strong sense of self to be a healthy, functioning adult in this society, so that you can have good boundaries, so that you know what you like, what you don't like, what your goals are, what you can contribute, so on and so forth. But it also is what makes you different. And in a society that has for a very long time advanced itself and profited and been very interested in the homogeneity of the population, the sense of ego was totally squashed and became demonized. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the goal is to get rid of it at all. What is your sense of yourself? And don't lose yourself, because that's part of your experience of life.
If I could just tag on to what you said, Liz, also, a lot of times, because I know if there are people out there like I was, because I think Lisa brought up earlier about overthinking, and being one of the being an overthinker. And so you, like, when you just said, what makes you different, right? And a lot of people can be like, oh my God, I don't know what makes me different, so just to offer something up to you people. And I used to feel this way too, like, what makes you different? I don't know. As my daughter was literally FaceTiming me, even though my gotta love kids, but you are unique. We are all unique individual human beings. So what makes you different is you are you. And I'm going to quote Dr. Seuss, but you are you and no one is truer than you, or you know what I mean? You are you and no one is truer than you, in a way. So don't overthink what makes me different. What makes you different is who you are, what you bring to the table, how you be with people. And by the way, speaking of ego and everything like that, it's who you are in your house, the same as who you show others who you are. Because if that's incongruent, that's also not going to fly either. So you have to become one in alignment with who you show it in your house to one person, who you show it to the other person, and just remain who you uniquely are at the core. And everybody has that alignment with themselves, I think.
Yes.
Lisa, hi, thanks. Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying. This is such an interesting topic, and this question is good. Is the goal to get rid of the ego? No, not really. The challenge is more aligned internally. Being in the present moment is what really gets rid of the ego, because your ego is all your false beliefs and narratives that were created when you were a child. So fighting with your ego just makes it stronger. You're actually like declaring war on it, and you make it the enemy. And once you make it the enemy, it becomes bigger than you, and your whole life is more thoughts of, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. And you start fighting this war in your head. So you have to choose your thoughts. For example, if it's what I was saying earlier, oh, it's another soul-sucking day. Look at it, it's raining outside and it's so cold, or whatever it is. I hate this. You could look at it going, oh, wait, look, there's raindrops. How beautiful and romantic this is. And let me grab my cup of coffee and turn on the fireplace. It's all in the way you think of it. You can't just say, oh my God, it's bad. Okay, I'm going to pretend it's good. I'm going to pretend I like rain. That's not really what it's about. It's about being in reality. It's raining. That's a fact. So then dissecting it and going, oh, what can I find that I like about it? Keep it real. Then suddenly you're free, once you could just be in the moment, be in the now, and what is what's happening and what's the solution, not the drama, because all the drama is your, what I call, imposters. And you could change from your imposters. Instead of making them, you could choose, are they your saboteurs or your superpowers? So your thoughts, you can make them your superpowers by being in alignment with them and being in the moment and what is, or you can make them your saboteurs of trying to fight with them and be at war, and you're not right and I'm right. And so it's all about mindset, being in the moment, being thoughtful, and being aligned in the present moment.
Thank you, Lisa. Liying,
I just want to thank you so much for opening the floor up to this discussion. I just want to just add on to everything that everyone has said so beautifully, that I would actually say what I would echo Lisa's words, because I think there is a need to realize that the ego is something we need to embrace. It is a part of us. And in my case, when I work with a client, it's about how we can unattach from the mind to realize that you have a mind, or the ego, that is the high functioning mind. That is my definition. It could be different for everyone. And that you are not the mind. You're not that ego. And to be able to observe the little things that the ego is doing, we would say, okay, that is what's happening, but that is not really authentically me. And so what exactly is going on here? And I think the emphasis I want to just put on is that we have to embrace the ego as part of us, because the more we try to suppress it, it's like a little child, you want to put it in the corner, it's just going to make more noise. So that's where I would stand on this one. So thank you.
If I can just add, it's about integrating the ego into the soul and having that really well-rounded perspective of everything, as opposed to operating from the ego. There's a really big difference between those two. But no, we don't destroy the ego. We integrate it into ourselves and love it and make it part of who we truly are on the energetic level.
Sabrina?
I just want to add one thing, and then we're going to go to Tessa. But to use my example again and bring the highlight to that. So when I was feeling like I was doing things wrong, that was me like comparing, that was me competing, that was me trying to perform for validation, like highlighting that I had done something wrong and me feeling wronged in that, when in essence, what I should have been doing and which I did pivot to is that my validation or my worth doesn't need to be proven. And that's what we're really trying to do, is like, it's okay to show up in ego. I did that, but the idea is to be able to shift. And that's the whole point of it. And we're doing that all day, every day. But it's having conversations like this with ladies like you who get us to acknowledge and be aware of it. It's not that it's bad. It's that you can be aware of it, acknowledge it, and then shift. I think is the main kind of takeaway that I'm kind of getting from this. Tessa, you're up.
Thank you. And actually, I think the question I have, it kind of leads on from what you were just saying again. I think we talked about like whether you talk about ego or identity, and again, all these different ways of that you can interpret that. But I think we seem to all agree here, and from what people have been sharing, from people who have been listening, I think that seems to be underlying their questions and comments too, is that idea of like there is you can call it your true self or the integrated ego or your soul or whatever it is, but like, and some people said that you're diamond, letting yourself shine. And then there is the things that mask that, whether it's labels that other put on you or your own labels or your masks or your coats or whatever way you see that. So for me, it's really that we have these layers, and if you, again, you could call it get rid of or let go, the words, it always is hard to put it in words because then already it can have a certain connotation and it means something different from everyone. But I think we get the gist that in a way it's like, okay, whichever way you see that you can let, yourself, your true self shine. But that also we talked a lot about it in how things can, labels and identities can be negative if it's connotated to this ego that stops us from being our true self. But I think there's also stuff that we really like. And again, I would compare it to like, if you want to think like, okay, I'm not really happy with my lifestyle and I want to change it. And then you think, yes, I definitely want to get rid of, like, for instance, I don't know, unhealthy foods and other things. But when you change, when you shift, I think one of the things that Iris mentioned as well, like about this feeling of like, do I feel love or fear? And I think that's totally true, except that every change also always carries an element of a feeling of fear, even if it's what we really feel is the absolute right thing to do. So I think it's also good to see that part of where might there be a fear or a resistance that is more a resistance to that shift that you just mentioned, Sabrina, that where you want to shift, but there's also still something you need to get through. So my question really is, like, in this whole process, and again, it's a lifelong journey, so it's always ongoing, but what if you maybe experienced once of like being on that journey where you did feel maybe that resistance or fear, and something that there was also an element of, I don't want to get rid of this, or I don't want to let this go, or I like this identity, right? And whether that might be because it made you feel good, or that it might also be it was a nice one to hide around. I know for myself there might also be the one that people, I could hide behind, that people saw me as kind of babbly and upfront, and I could hide around it because I could say things that other people couldn't, and sometimes that was nice, but sometimes I also knew that I therefore didn't have to work on, sometimes maybe also be a bit more conscious of how what I said landed with other people, right? So is there something there where you think, yeah, there I know it's part of the process? And also it might be you're just not ready, and that's also okay, that you also have that choice where you feel like, hey, yes, this is part of it, but just not right now. Torie, I think first.
So I have a very recent one with this. I was a single mom for 3 years, and within the last year, my boyfriend moved in with me. And it was really hard for me to let go of that identity of being a single mom, because there's so much pride behind that. And there's so much like, I can do everything, I can conquer the world and stuff. And, one could argue I couldn't even have said that because his dad is so involved, like his biological father, but now he has like an amazing stepdad and a biological father who's very involved, and me. And so it's like, he is, he's good. And I am now able to relax, and I can release that identity of being, the super mom with a cape and stuff like that. And that was hard for me to let go. And it's still like, I was surprised at how much of a grieving process I had to go through internally when I released that, because, it's like, nobody wants a single mom. Nobody wants to be a single mom. Like, that's not the goal of any little girl, usually. And, but I just think I was like, that was me for 3 years. And so I had, I had so much attachment to that identity that when I didn't have it anymore, I was like, oh no, I can't let that go. Like, no. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I must say goosebumps, because I think it's so beautiful what you're saying. And also, yeah, and it shows that shift, right? It shows how, but also how, and I think that's so important with these things, to first of all accept that that's how you're feeling about it, right? Because if we change something from the perspective, oh, I should be able to let it go, or it should be different, instead of, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now, and that's okay. But then the difference between, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now, so that's it, but more, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now what do I need to change? So thank you. Caren.
Torie, that was just okay. Just stunning. So, but my identity actually, I'm going to talk about something that happened a few years ago. I just realized this too. Like, I was always my parents' child, right? I'm Harriet and Maurice's daughter. I was Jeffrey's sister. I'm Nicole and Jordan's mom. I'm Jason's wife. Jason's soon to be ex-wife. I was someone else. I was always tied to someone or something else. And my identity for a really long time was I was that working mom with a side gig. I was a corporate working mom with it, and then I ended up having my side gig. And when I lost my job almost 4 years ago now, I was like, oh crap, what am I? Like, I had no idea who I was, because I literally had tied my identity to being everything else but Caren. But I came across like I was Caren, and I came across all, happy and peppy and bursting with love. But on the inside, I wasn't so much happy and peppy and bursting with love. And it took me a really long time to say, you know what, I'm Caren. Like, I can detach from I can be Caren, and that's good enough, because I was attached to the not good enough. The whole thing of being someone else's identity was attached to the not good enough thing. And it took me quite some time to surrender. And that's what I'm still working on. That's what led me to all the things I'm currently working on now. But it was a huge pivot and shift, and something I didn't even realize I had until I lost it, quite frankly. So there's a lot of times I think we tie ourselves up in an identity, and we don't even realize that's what we did. It's unintentional until we possibly lose it, and then have to make that shift. And just to the point of, I've been resisting the shift for quite some time. And that's how only 2 weeks ago did that whole Sandy analogy come to me, because that was even for myself, because I'm always all about you be you, and it's really important to be authentic, and I'm always about that. And I was realizing that I needed to shed like a snake, like an onion, and peel the layers to get rid of to get rid of the things that weren't serving me, so that I could get more of what is serving me, so that I can make a massive impact on other people's lives.
Thanks, Caren. And I think you mentioned the word surrender, and I think that's key, right? It's that surrendering. And I think some people mentioned it before, that, if there's somewhere that you want to be, that it can be great to paint that picture. And then in the same time, surrendering to what's here right now, and then build on that, basically. Yeah. Is there anyone who wants anything else to share about this? Otherwise, we'll move on. Yeah, Jennifer.
So really quickly, I was sexually abused by my dad. So for most of my life, I carried that around with me, that it was my fault and that it was something that I had carried a lot of guilt and shame basically my entire life until 3 years ago. That was well, first of all, I was so embarrassed of it. I never told anyone my entire life. And now I'm like extremely public with it. I've told the world. And so my point is that my identity was like always hiding and always like not living up to like that story. It was a big part of me. And now I've been able to surrender that was not my shame and my guilt to hold. And I put that back on my dad. That's for him to hold. And that was a huge, huge, huge like turning point in my life when I was able to take that off of myself and put it back on the person that did it in the first place. So I know we're up, but I just wanted to share that because that was a really big thing for me in my journey. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's, well, most powerful expression as well of how when there is something we think that needs to be hidden and we don't, like, you know, something like this big, but there can be smaller things for other people that you don't show or don't say, it actually is more powerful and bigger than when you actually allow it to be visible to yourself or others. And then it loses its power if it's like in this way, if it's like what you said, as it was holding you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Torie, I think you're next up.
Yes, thank you.
So, all right, for me, the fastest way to get out of my ego is to be like, okay, we are these organisms that, you know, were created or developed, however you view it, on this random rock that is hurtling through space, you know, at however many millions miles an hour. And so that's like kind of how I can, you know, zoom out and just like release whatever is built up. But one thing that I was noticing a few years ago when I was, you know, talking to my therapist about like ego, and I was really exploring like how much of a hold that had on me, and like how many things like kind of went back to that, like getting offended, like somebody had, you know, mentioned, but also like little senses of entitlement that we think about, like traffic. Like it is so commonly accepted for people to get really pissed off if they run into traffic, even though it's like rush hour and everybody knows. And so I just wanted to know, like, do you guys have any ideas of like little things that are actually like causing a big reaction out of people that are so commonly accepted, that are big, that like they're just wasting energy and emotions, and it's just like ego. It's like, I don't deserve this, or like I don't need to be here, or something like that. But it's like, why not? I mean, everybody else is. Like, you know, we're all just in this. If we released that and we were able to like flow better with the punches or whatever, then we would just have so much more freedom, so much more time and space to like think of things we actually want to do. Ying Li. No, Liying. Sorry.
Perfect. It's perfect. I think when you spoke about that, what came up for me was, and it is also based on one of the experiences I had with a client. And I remember her saying that, you know, I don't deserve to feel at peace. I don't deserve to feel zen. I don't deserve, I can have more because of the state of the world, like what's going on with the world. And it is such a deep conditioning where people start to feel like, oh, I shouldn't have more. I shouldn't show up like this, or I shouldn't show off that, or anything related to money, especially as well. You know, the ego and the money, that's another topic. And I think that's where I think women, especially, I think coming back to, I think Elizabeth, that said something about the wound that, you know, the feminine wound that we have deeply held for me many lifetimes, I would say, that we have to really alchemize and transmute, because I think that that sense of guilt that we carry is the reason why we're not showing up fully. And I think people tend to really or in my opinion, tend to really mistake that as an ego thing, right? But we are meant to be abundant. We're meant to have all that we desire, because if we don't see, I like to think that if we desire something, it is really something for us. It is meant to be for us, you know. And yeah, that's my take on it. I'll pass the crystal ball to someone else who wants to speak.
I love it. And I feel like whole books and seminars could be written on ego and should or shouldn't and how those are connected. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, maybe childhood and peers or siblings of, you know, if one person shines, you're, you know, putting out the light in someone else. And it goes to the Marianne Williamson's quote of our deepest fear is that we are really meant to shine and to be the greatest we can be. But we put our light to help other people feel comfortable, and that serves no one. So it's really about standing in your power, and you light your flame, and then you light others, and everyone can shine.
I love that. That's so good. Yes. Ileana.
I know there are certain women who feel guilty if they have more than others, if they have bigger talents, if they have more money, they have more accomplishments, because as somebody said before, the world is in such a bad state and other people are suffering. And how can I be enjoying my life when other people are in dire straits? They're homeless, they're in war, and it's like that kind of thinking doesn't add to the positive energy in the world whatsoever. It's actually the other way around. We should be celebrating these things and, of course, helping others as much as we can. But there is nothing wrong with abundance and having a wonderful life. You're not taking away from anybody. The only way you're taking away is if you feel badly about it and you send out those really bad negative vibes into the world, because it's definitely not helping anyone. So I would encourage everyone to just celebrate life and enjoy it as much as possible, because it's pretty short, the one we have right now. Thank you.
I love that.
Torie, can you read the comment real fast as we wrap up?
Sure. And then I think Tessa had something. This panel was amazing. Sabrina, thank you for doing this subject. I needed this so bad and didn't even know it. Thank you, lady. Thanks to you ladies for sharing so openly. I love that I always cry and laugh during these. I feel so close to you all right now. Big hug. And then Tessa,
sorry. I just very briefly want to add, because I think it was so important what Ileana just said, but also to say to anyone in the audience, if there's ever a time where you don't feel positive or where you do stay guilty, it's okay, right? Don't feel, because I had this once, that when these kind of things, that I then started feeling guilty about not putting positive energy in the world because I somehow didn't manage. So if there is, for whatever reason, that you can't get there, that you don't feel positive, that you are stuck in that guilty feeling, then just try whichever way you can, either within or to friends or families or in any other way. What do you need to get there? And see if you can get that for yourself, but don't feel guilty for if you can't in this moment of time.
Just be authentic, whether you have it or not, right?
And that's the part where it does come back to, you know, we're organisms on this rock hurtling through space. Like we're meant to feel all the emotions. And so it's like, if you think of that, like, oh, this is the part where I feel a little bit guilty, you know, like if you just feel it. And we had somebody on here, it was a while ago, I think it was on one of your like all day ones, Sabrina. And she was talking about the difference between embracing and acceptance. And it's like, if you embrace that, then it fills it with love. And so even though you're feeling guilty, you're like hugging that guilt and filling it with love. And that's like the best way to do things. I think about that all the time.
Girl, that just totally warms my heart. That's us here talking. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I so appreciate each and every one of you being here and taking the time. For those of you watching live, thank you for hanging out. We had a high of 72. So thank you so much for watching this live. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know that you were here. We can send you some love. This is the Her Version podcast, and today we discussed ego and releasing your identity. I got so much information from this, so thank you so much. For any of you that resonated with any of the ladies here on screen, just notate that their websites were going through the ticker bar during the entire segment, so just match the name with the ticker and reach out. This is the Her Version podcast. Like I said, my name is Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always, do something